Amazing moments revealed, mother deer's touching quest for help to rescue hidden fawn in fence. Sarah's heart raced as she navigated the familiar streets of Springfield, her thoughts a chaotic whirlwind. Another long shift at the clinic had left her drained, and tonight, her mind simmered with worries. The empty seat at the table was a daily reminder of her husband, gone too soon, leaving a gaping hole in their lives. Emily, her bright-eyed daughter, still believed in superheroes. But Sarah? She questioned whether she could muster the energy to be one. Bills piled high on the counter, and the weight of uncertainty pressed on her like a heavy blanket. Could she even make it through another month? As the sun dipped low, casting a warm glow that contrasted sharply with her inner turmoil, Sarah rounded a corner and was jolted by a sudden sight. A frantic mother deer, desperate, tugging at something in a chain-link fence that twisted and coiled like the stress in her heart. In that moment, her sense of duty ignited. How could she let this innocent creature suffer? Yet deep down, fear gripped her. Was this just another burden she couldn't bear? Emily's soft voice broke through her thoughts. "Mommy, we have to help her." The little girl's plea echoed like a clarion call, and before she could second-guess herself, Sarah hopped out of the car, calling for Emily to follow closely. An instinct to protect surged within her. But as she approached the distressed deer, several neighbors emerged, raising questions that clawed at her confidence. What if it gets dangerous? "Why put yourself at risk?" she heard them murmur, their doubts becoming a mirror to her own. Each word served as a reminder of the weight of motherhood, now compounded by years of loss and solitude. With every anguished cry from the deer, Sarah battled a torrent of conflicting emotions. In her mind, a chorus of self-doubt played on repeat. What if she failed? What if her decision to help only led to more chaos? She longed for reassurance, a flicker of belief in her capacity to not only save the fawn but to embody the resilient spirit she had upheld for Emily's sake. Just then, a familiar face emerged from the crowd. Mr. Thompson, the neighborhood's elder statesman with a glimmer of nostalgia in his eyes. "Back in my day," he began, voice quivering with age and sincerity, "we always helped each other out. Let's show that same spirit now." For a moment, his words swayed the crowd, stirring memories of better times. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered, revealing fractured relationships, old grievances, and a depth of human emotion that Sarah had barely grazed. The air thickened as neighbors argued over methods and risks, each voice a reminder of her own struggles. How hard it was to trust, to lean on others when she felt like a fortress, fortified behind her grief. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In that swirling chaos, Sarah felt the pulse of her own fears beat louder. Would they forget about the deer altogether? Could she find a way to bridge the divide without losing herself? As the group's anger and frustration bubbled, an unexpected danger emerged. A feral dog, drawn by the commotion, dashed into their circle, eyes wild and ready for chaos. The crowd recoiled, panic rippling through the gathered faces. Sarah's heart sank, leaving her with a choice that caught in her throat the way loss always had. Would she gather her courage, stepping forward to defend not only the fawn, but also all that she had left to protect? Her daughter and the fragile tapestry of community around her. Questions loomed like storm clouds above, a fierce and uncertain resolution waiting just out of reach. Panic surged like a tide, rippling through the onlookers as the feral dog lunged forward. Sarah froze, a visceral instinct to protect igniting within her. In a heartbeat, the swirling doubts and fears faded into a singular focus. Emily. She turned sharply to her daughter, whose wide eyes mirrored the confusion that swirled around them. "Stay close to me," Sarah commanded, her voice steadier than she felt. The frenzied barking of the dog overwhelmed the cries of the trapped deer, and Sarah's thoughts spiraled as she weighed her options. The animal before her could lash out, and in her attempts to shield Emily, She could inadvertently put both of them in danger. But the image of the deer, desperate and helpless, broke through her hesitation. Gathering her breath, Sarah clenched her fists, and without fully understanding the decision, she stepped forward. Each stride rooted in a fierce determination, she positioned herself between the dog and the fawn, heart thrumming like a drum in her chest. Miraculously, the crowd responded. Some neighbors shouted, attempting to distract the dog, while others clung to the hope that Sarah's bravery could steer this chaotic scene toward safety. In that fraught moment, clarity descended upon Sarah. All the burden she carried, her husband's loss, her fears of inadequacy, faded into the background. She was no longer just a grieving widow. She was a mother faced with an immediate threat, and that alone ignited a fierce resolve within her. Instincts surged, and she focused on the dog, lowering her voice to a calm yet authoritative tone. "Back off! Leave her alone!" Surprisingly, her voice cut through the panic. The dog hesitated, confusion flickering across its wild eyes. It barked again, but Sarah stood her ground, channeling all her energy into maintaining control of the situation as she sought a way to guide it away from the deer. As seconds stretched into an eternity, she caught a glimpse of Mr. Thompson. No longer lost to his memories, he stepped forward, an expression of steely determination on his face. "Does anyone have a leash?" he called, rallying those nearby. In that small moment, Sarah's heart swelled, an unexpected support ignited by a shared sense of purpose. The neighbors mobilized, in a way that felt almost reverential, each one stepping beyond their fears toward a common goal. Sarah's pulse quickened, not from anxiety, but from a raw electric sense of possibility. Perhaps it was not just her strength they needed, but each other's. Together, they corralled the dog, using distractions crafted from sheer ingenuity. Bark and shake, squeaky toys offered like peace offerings. Sarah watched in awe as their collective determination bore fruit, the dog gradually losing interest, shifting its attention to the entertainments they improvised. With the immediate threat neutralized, voices resumed both in encouragement and caution as the crowd pivoted back to the distressed deer. Sarah turned back to Emily, whose face shone with admiration. "Mommy, you were so brave." Underneath that pride, however, self-doubt wove itself back into Sarah's thoughts. Could she harness this moment of courage again? Could she lead her daughter through the treacherous terrain of life ahead? Her heart still thudded chest, but beneath it was a dawning understanding of a larger truth. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. As the group worked collaboratively to free the fawn, exchanging tips and laughter, a palpable unity vibrant in the air, Sarah realized that building a community was as essential as saving a life. Amid the frayed ties, there remained a desire to connect. But as they managed to free the fawn from the fence, a new challenge loomed ahead. The road back to normalcy was as tangled as the deer's predicament. Could she find a way to harness the strength she discovered tonight, not just for herself, but for Emily's future? With this thought looming, Sarah sensed an urgency in her chest, a shift in the depths of her soul. The moment had come to unearth the kind of resilience she had only hoped was there. Yet, as dawn's light flirted with the horizon, one question remained unresolved. In this fresh attempt at rebuilding, would she be able to seek help when she needed it most? The tangle of uncertainty awaited her as freshly freed fawn bounded into the brush, leaving behind an unresolved season of her own life, teetering on the edge of a new beginning. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the trees, casting warm hues across the clearing, Sarah stood numbly, feeling the residual vibrations of the chaos that had erupted just moments before. Each breath she took felt deeper, yet more intricate, as if the air around her was charged with unspent energy. She gazed at Emily, whose eyes sparkled with admiration. That fleeting moment of courage she had shown was now juxtaposed against the stillness left in its wake. Turning from her daughter, Sarah's attention drifted back to the now empty space where the dog had once been, its sudden departure leaving her with a complicated concoction of relief and anxiety. The situation had demanded everything of her, unraveling layers of herself she hadn't known existed. She had felt powerful, yes, but the question nagged at her. Was that strength something sustainable, or merely a flicker among the dark? With the fawn safely out of danger, the crowd dispersed slowly, conversations bubbling up as they retreated back into ordinary lives. Ordinariness, however, felt foreign to Sarah now. She lingered, hesitant to follow the path of those leaving, as though she would be swept away if she didn't steady herself first. "Mommy?" Emily's voice broke through her reverie, urging Sarah's focus back to the girl who looked up to her with wide-eyed innocence. "Can we go home now?" "Yes, sweetheart. Let's go," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. As they began to walk, a swell of urgency continued to build inside her. What was she to do with the strength she had felt? How could she ensure Emily understood the depth of courage, even when life wasn't as simple as rescuing a fawn? The afternoon turned contemplative, filled with fleeting moments of clarity, interrupted by the reminders of her responsibilities. As they entered their home, the familiar sight of a stack of unpaid bills and a cluttered countertop greeted her like old friends hardened by neglect. Each day was a struggle between sufficient nurturing for Emily and managing the weight of a household she hadn't quite been prepared to steer alone. Would this new insight grant her the clarity to navigate a different routine, or would it leave her further entangled in the threads of self-doubt? Setting her bag down, she made her way to the kitchen, where half-empty glasses and uneaten snacks from yesterday's lunch lounged about. A spark ignited within her. She couldn't let fear dictate how they lived day to day. She had seen the triumph of that night. Perhaps turning chaos into order needed its own kind of bravery. She set about tidying the kitchen, but her mind raced with possibilities of how to turn that singed ember of courage into a flickering flame, ready to guide her through challenges she had previously avoided. With every dish she washed, her thoughts began to crystallize into actionable plans. Maybe it was time for a reorganization of their routine, a new structure that included more engagement and less isolation. Did that involve reaching out to those she had pushed away after her husband's passing? The thought made her stomach twist. It was one thing to be brave in the face of danger. It felt utterly different to confront her loneliness. As dusk began to paint the sky with strokes of violet and indigo, Sarah finally sat down with Emily on the living room floor, a set of crayons and paper spread before them. "What do you think about making a bravery plan?" she asked, watching a flicker of intrigue spark in her daughter's expression. "A what?" Emily grinned, tilting her head with childlike curiosity. "A plan for adventure and courage," Sarah replied, her resolve settling stronger within her. She took a moment, letting the environment shift from scattered thoughts into a unified focus. And so they began to draw and discuss ideas, a creative chaos spilling into realization, blending their hopes. As she imagined painted avenues they could explore together, the urge to redefine herself became loud and clear. She could transform fear into focus, isolation into interaction. But just as their plans started to take shape, a sudden chill swept through her. What if confronting those past connections led to rejection, or worse, vulnerability? Sarah's breathing quickened, the room pulsating with uncertainty yet again. The braver she felt, the more daunting it seemed. As colors bled into one another on the page, the question loomed larger by the second. Would she have the courage to reach out and mend the fragmented ties that bound her to a one-time community? Or would she falter like she had so many times before? The weight of the decision settled over her like fog, enveloping her thoughts while she and Emily continued to fill the pages, eyes bright, but uncertainties brewing deep within. The vibrant colors faded into an unsettling reality as Sarah and Emily continued to draw, their creations blurring into a world dictated by fear and doubt. The laughter that should have filled the room felt muffled, as if dampened by the gravity of the decisions that loomed ahead. How could she embrace that moment of bravery from earlier when every ounce of her being resisted the thought of exposing herself to rejection? "Mommy," Emily's innocent inquiry drew Sarah from her spiral of uncertainty. "Can we have a real adventure, like the one with the fawn?" Her heart lightened momentarily. "We will, my love. I promise." Yet the weight of those words pressed down on her conscience. How could she lead her daughter toward adventure when she felt paralyzed by her own fears? As the night deepened, an idea flickered in her mind. A small, yet palpable realization. What if the first adventure didn't involve grandeur, but rather something personal, a stepping stone towards reconnecting the relationships she had let rot? The following morning, Sarah awoke with a fresh sense of intention, the residual embers of yesterday's courage rekindling. She sat at the small kitchen table, a cup of coffee warming her hands, and made a mental list of people she had distanced herself from. It was an awkward start, but she needed to confront the internal disconnects first, even before reaching out to others. Even as she sipped her coffee, the anxiety bubbled up. The thought of calls, messages, or even a simple meeting felt monumental. Each name invoked a myriad of emotions: sadness, regret, anger, emotions she preferred to box up and tuck into the farthest corner of her mind. But the realization stayed. If she didn't allow herself to feel vulnerable, how would Emily ever learn the value of reaching out? Sarah decided she wouldn't let fear preemptively dictate the outcome. She set her intention firmly. From that moment on, her focus would shift toward engagement and connection, both for her benefit and Emily's. After all, bravery wasn't the absence of fear, it was deciding to act in spite of it. The first name on her list was Amelia, a close friend from before the world had shifted beneath her feet. They had shared both laughter and tears, a bond created over countless coffee-fueled conversations. The phone felt heavy in her hand, an anchor tethering her to the past that now felt so distant. Taking a deep breath, she dialed Amelia's number. It rang once, then twice before she pulled it away and paused. What if Amelia had moved on without her? What if the kindness she once knew had faded? Each possibility raced through her mind, clouding her vision with apprehension. But just as she was preparing to hang up, a voice crackled through the receiver. "Hello? Amelia?" Sarah barely recognized her own voice, tinged with nervousness but layered with determination. She had made the call. She had crossed an invisible boundary, thrusting herself into the realm of connection she had avoided for entirely too long. "Sarah! Oh my goodness, I haven't heard from you in ages." The warmth in Amelia's tone sliced through Sarah's doubts. They chatted, every shared laugh and question igniting glimpses of the connection that had once solidified their friendship. Just as they began to make tentative plans to meet, the conversation swung toward a personal invitation. Remembering the community dinner they used to host, Amelia suggested, "We should try to put together something again. Just like old times. It could be just us at first, and then we can invite others. It's time to rebuild, isn't it?" The air felt electric, potential crackling through the line. Amelia was completely on board, a vessel of enthusiasm passing through to Sarah. As the conversation wound down, Sarah felt lighter, buoyed by the ride of spontaneity and a glimpse of rekindled companionship. But uncertainty still lingered, perched like an uninvited guest ready to bring chaos back into her life. Sarah realized the significance of this moment. She had taken a step, but how would she manage the fear that lingered unaddressed? As she hung up, her thoughts shifted towards Emily, who played quietly in the background, her spirit untouched by the encumbrances of adulthood. The journey had unfolded far beyond a simple call, revealing that the path to bravery wasn't merely about facing the outside world, but also navigating the tumult of one's own internal landscape. The weight of the decision to meet again settled deeper this time. The stakes were higher than they had been before. What if all she'd built upon her newfound courage shattered with one awkward conversation or a mismanaged expectation? With every breath she took, Sarah felt the quiet swell of determination brewing within her. This was only the beginning of her journey. Reaching out had lit her resolve, but now she needed to fortify her internal strength. As she looked at Emily, her heart swelled anew with a newfound commitment to become the kind of mother who transformed fear into connection. And yet, lurking beneath that determination was a lingering question. Was she truly ready to face the living ghosts of her past and confront all the relationships she had put on hold? The morning light broke through the window, saturating the kitchen with a soft glow that felt almost therapeutic. Sarah set her coffee mug aside, her thoughts uncoiling with each minute that passed. She suddenly realized that every moment spent with Emily was laced with both a reminder of her past and the promise of growth. This realization pulled her mind towards the task ahead, reinstituting connections that had become ghostly reminders of a life once vibrant. With Amelia's invitation echoing in her head, Sarah knew she had to prepare herself not just for the reunion, but for a deeper encounter with feelings she had long buried. It was time to step beyond the fear that had acted as a barrier between her and the life she craved, and that realization quickened her pulse. As she moved around the kitchen, Sarah drafted not only logistical thoughts but emotional ones, mentally rehearsing her words and responses. She began listing her emotional anchor points, what she wanted to convey, how she could initiate deep conversations without shying away. This was not merely about rekindling friendships. It was about challenging the very fear that had quieted her spirit for too long. That afternoon, an impulsive thought surged within her, a surge of wanting to reconnect beyond her original intentions. She pulled out her journal, a place where thoughts could stretch and mold without judgment. She began to write about her fears, how embarrassment had sealed her lips, how regret tangled with her heartstrings, and how loneliness had crept into her soul. The act of confronting these emotions became cathartic. Each word released a fragment of power, fortifying her with a sense of clarity. Days passed, and soon the time rolled around for the meetup with Amelia. She prepped with deliberation, choosing an outfit that made her feel confident yet comfortable, practicing how she would embrace the conversation without dwelling on what could go wrong. The lush park setting of their reunion swirled with memories of laughter, and as she stepped onto the familiar ground, anxiety gripped her stomach. There was no turning back. This was a reckoning with her past self. As she waited, her mind drifted to the potential conversations ahead. Amelia had always been a listener, her kindness a buoy in even the stormiest times. Would she still be that haven for Sarah? When Amelia finally arrived, that warm smile ignited a spark of relief. For a moment, Sarah forgot the weight pressing against her chest. They settled on a bench, sharing stories that felt like delicate strands, stitching their lives back together. But a subtle shift took place as they moved deeper into conversation. Amelia began to ask direct questions about Sarah's life, about her struggles, her isolation, and her fears. Each inquiry was a subtle prod digging into the corners of Sarah's heart, peeling away layers of pretense. Energy thrummed in the air as Sarah confronted the truth. She craved openness, but shied away from the vulnerability it required. "I feel like I've lost so much time," she admitted, her voice strained yet resolute. "Every day feels like a step backward." In that moment, an unexpected reflection crossed Amelia's face. Understanding, empathy, and something more. Readiness to help. "We can't control the past, but we can choose how we move forward together," she replied firmly. Sarah considered the truth in those words. They evoked the strength she had been fostering, a surge of bravery arising, ready to push against her limitations. Like undercurrents of a river, the strength of vulnerability began to surface. Their conversation flowed, weaving through old memories and contemporary realities, each acknowledging the struggle and chaos that accompanied their individual journeys. But dread lingered when Amelia hinted at including a larger circle, reigniting Sarah's initial fears. The prospect of opening up her life to others felt daunting, the fear of judgment a heavy cloak on her shoulders. Yet within this was an opportunity. If she could face this moment, she could craft the life she envisioned, a life where connection replaced isolation. Just as they began to hum with excitement over future possibilities, Sarah's phone buzzed unexpectedly. An urgent message, a potential distraction that could unravel the fragile relationship she had been stitching back together. What now? Standing on the cusp of connection, would she allow herself to be drawn into the anxiety of outside forces, or would she have the strength to remain anchored in the moment? With a deep inhale, Sarah steadied herself, contemplating the resolution she needed to forge. In this moment, the answers loomed just out of reach, but one thing was undeniably clear. She was closer to understanding the strength of connection than ever before. The vibration of Sarah's phone cut through the air, sharp and jarring, as the conversation with Amelia swelled with potential. She glanced down at the screen. It was a work email. Tentacles of unease snaked through her, demanding her attention, pulling her back into the shadows where responsibilities and fears lurked, a place she had just begun to escape. Amelia's voice softened, threading through Sarah's distraction. "You okay?" Her concern was palpable, a warm hand reaching into the cold space of Sarah's trepidation. "Yeah, just work stuff," Sarah replied, forcing a smile while battling the urge to review the message right there on the park bench. She felt her heart race, caught between the comfort of the present moment and the remnants of her demanding career that often felt more like a chain than a pathway. "Trust me, I know how that can be," Amelia acknowledged, her voice carrying the weight of shared experience. "But let's make a pact. For the next hour, no work talk. Just us." Taking a steadying breath, Sarah surrendered to the moment, forgoing the temptation to slip back into the protection of busyness. With every beat, she chose to lean into Amelia's request, a conscious act of vulnerability that felt electrifying yet terrifying. "This weekend I'm going to try something new," Amelia said, shifting the conversation toward lightheartedness. "Joining a mixed martial arts class. Can you imagine me throwing punches?" A laugh escaped Sarah's lips, a refreshing release that sent ripples into the reservoir of anxiety she had been holding like a lifebuoy. "Honestly, I can see it, but I think you might take out the instructor by accident." Amelia chuckled. "If only I could channel my inner warrior. But really it's about trying something beyond my comfort zone." "And here I thought I was the brave one," Sarah said, her tone turning introspective. "I'm still figuring out how to let people in, one step at a time while keeping my world from collapsing." This admission felt heavier than usual, an acknowledgement not only of her struggles but of the walls she built to protect herself from the pain of judgment. Silence settled around them, wrapping the moment in tension and honesty. "Sarah," Amelia began, her voice soft yet direct, "allowing people in takes courage too. Honestly, it might just be the bravest thing of all." The words resonated like a tuning fork struck against Sarah's conscience. What had she been so afraid of? The fear of rejection had wrapped her in knots. Yet here was Amelia, radiating potential friendship despite her vulnerabilities. This might just be the turning point she needed. If she could surrender to others, she might also accept herself. Mind racing, Sarah cleared her throat. "Amelia, I've been thinking about stepping beyond just us. Maybe I can be part of something stronger, a larger group, a network?" Amelia raised an eyebrow, leaning closer, eyes sparkling with encouragement. "That's amazing. You mean branching out, like having more friends?" "Yes, exactly," Sarah said, the excitement feeding her determination. "Beyond the surface I usually keep, opening up to a community where I can be seen, after all these years of hiding." Yet just as the thrill of this declaration pulsed through her, a shadow flickered in her mind, the dread of judgment and the echo of past experiences where vulnerability had led to disappointment. What if they don't understand me or I'm just too different? "Or what if they surprise you?" Amelia interjected, a challenge lingering in the air. "Either way, it will be your choice to embrace or walk away." Asg stuck with her, spurring a newfound resolve. The battle between her old self and this emerging persona clashed within her. Could she really take this step? Just as the heart of the conversation began to thrive again, another buzz interrupted, an urgent call from a close colleague. The stakes of her professional life beckoned again, and the weight of expectation pressed against her resolve. In the grip of uncertainty, Sarah found herself at a crossroads brimming with potential but haunted by the shadows of old fears. With a final glance towards Amelia, she sensed a turning tide within her. If she chose to answer this time, it would not be to retreat into the familiar, but to search for clarity and confront who she could become with connection. What would she choose? Would the call be a distraction, or a lifeline that guided her deeper into the life she aspired to build? The pulse of possibility thrummed beneath the surface, and as she hesitated, the decision loomed large. The phone buzzed again, its urgent ring pulling Sarah back from the precipice of her contemplation. Reasons for hesitation and anxiety jostled within her as she glanced again at Amelia, whose expression conveyed unwavering support. Sarah inhaled deeply, pushing through the anxiety that wrapped around her chest. With a determined swipe, she answered the call, her voice steady, yet slightly taut. "Hello. Yes, I'm here," she said, her mind still whirling with thoughts of vulnerability and connection. The voice on the other end detailed an emergency project that demanded immediate attention. Expectations prismed through the call, painting her responsibilities in stark, unavoidable clarity. It was the sort of challenge that previously would have sent her sprinting towards the tasks at hand, diving in head first without hesitation. But as she listened, the reality of what was at stake struck her. She noticed herself inching back into reaction mode. There was pressure to perform, to demonstrate that she was indispensable, but her earlier conversation with Amelia echoed in her mind, daring her to resist the pull. Could she navigate this situation differently? "Let's see what we need to do," she responded, tapping her pen against her notepad, drawing a map of actions she could take. A shift occurred within her. Instead of allowing the urgency to cascade her into frenzy, she focused on strategy. The clarity in her approach felt foreign yet exhilarating, a subtle reminder of the bravery she had yet to fully embrace. As the call wrapped, Sarah hung up, a wave of adrenaline mixing with a sense of clarity. This was it. An opportunity to act not just as a cog in a machine, but as a leader. She needed to channel the courage to articulate her ideas, to reach out to her colleagues openly, inviting them to collaborate rather than retreating into isolation as she often did. Amelia watched her intently, sensing the shift. "What's going on in that determined mind of yours?" Gazing out at the park, Sarah felt boldness overcoming lingering shadows. "I think I can mobilize the team. Instead of being in the background, I want to take the lead. Ask them what they think, not just about the project, but how we can work together." "Now that's the Sarah I know." Amelia's voice was brimming with enthusiasm. "You're going to do great." With buoyed spirits, Sarah took a step further. "And maybe I can reach out to some people from that professional group I've been eyeing online. A place where I can really learn and grow. Small steps. I know it won't be easy." "So, branching out with work and personal connections?" Amelia mused. "Sounds like you're forming a whole new network for yourself." "Yes, a network," Sarah affirmed, the word resonating with newfound power. She understood this wasn't just about expanding her social sphere. It was about positioning herself in places where she could be seen, truly visible for who she was. The notion was still daunting, the shadows of self-doubt whispering warnings in her mind. But for the first time they felt less oppressive than before. Her heart raced. She took a deep breath and tapped out an email to her colleagues, inviting them to brainstorm on the new project together. It felt liberating, a minor rebellion against her previous tendencies. As Sarah pressed send, an exhilarating buzz coursed through her veins. Perhaps the leap of faith she took with Amelia had sparked something deeper, something transformative. Each action resonated through her, propelling her toward a future where she could balance her demands and desires. But just as excitement began to build, a message popped up on her screen, a response that sent a chill sweeping through her. It was a questioning reply from one of her colleagues, challenging the very essence of her plan. Doubt coiled around her again like a serpent, tightening its grip. Had she made a mistake in reaching out? Sarah felt the familiar pull of anxiety. Would her efforts be dismissed before they even began? With her pulse quickening, she realized the true battle lay ahead, not just in navigating the dynamics of work, but in resisting the temptation to retreat back into silence. What would her next move be? Would she allow fear to silence her? Or would she confront the looming skepticism and continue on her path of growth? The resolution bubbled beneath the surface as she sat there, the weight of her choices heavy in the air, forcing her to question, was she brave enough to endure this moment? The screen's glow momentarily blinded Sarah, and she blinked rapidly to refocus. The email sat there with a glaring subject line, each word a critique jabbing at her resolve. She gripped the edge of her desk, her fingers digging into the cool wood, centering herself. This was the moment she had anticipated, the gut test where her intentions would clash with doubt. Flashes of her past attempts to lead flickered in her mind, overwhelmed by the quick judgment of others, silenced by the weight of expectation. But something was different this time. She wasn't just reaching out to prove herself. She aimed to create a dialogue, a partnership. The empowering notion of collaboration rekindled the fire in her belly. Taking a breath that steadied her shaking hands, Sarah formulated her response. Rather than retreating into a defensive stance, she decided to invite discourse. Thank you for your thoughts, she typed, her fingers striking keys with deliberate intent. I'd love to discuss this further. What concerns do you see and how can we address them together? Sending the email felt like releasing a burden. Energy coursed through her veins as she pressed the send button, an assertion of leadership that transformed anxiety into resolve. She stood, moving toward the window. Sunlight streamed in, illuminating both the room and the possibilities that loomed ahead. Unexpectedly, the smell of brewed coffee wafted through from the break room, pulling her from her triumphant reverie. A small desire bubbled up. She could engage casually with her colleagues, break away from the suffocating seriousness of project demands, and just connect. Yet, a soft voice echoed in her mind. Wouldn't that distract her from the larger aspirations she had just embraced? She hesitated, the norms of her previous self creeping back, weighing her thoughts like lead. But she had committed to stepping outside her comfort zone, hadn't she? Okay, she murmured softly to herself, aligning her thoughts to embrace small actions that might lead to significant change. Just one step at a time, she made her way to the break room, steeled to initiate spontaneous conversations. As she entered, she found a small group gathered around the coffee machine, their chatter lively and animated. One colleague glanced her way, arching an eyebrow, as if questioning her place within the circle, the tentative smile gingerly easing into a greeting. Hey, Sarah, join us? She took a step forward, an imaginative leap away from her perceived role as an outsider. What are we discussing? She asked, embracing the amiable atmosphere. As they welcomed her, Sarah felt the raw energy of connection ignite anew. A shared laugh from her colleagues solidified the camaraderie she yearned for, and she reveled in their conversation, surprising herself with how naturally she contributed her thoughts. Encouraged, she ventured deeper into dialogue, naturally discussing the project she just proposed. Instead of falling into her previous habit of self-doubt, she articulated her vision. To her surprise, no one dismissed her idea. Several colleagues offered thoughts that expanded her initial concept, the organic exchange of ideas creating a tangible buzz of potential. As the conversation flowed, Sarah sensed a profound shift within herself. She was becoming part of this team, stepping into roles without surrendering herself to anxiety. It wasn't just about this project, it was about her evolution, learning to stand sturdy even when faced with skepticism. However, just as her confidence surged, her phone buzzed again. A message that jolted her back to her burgeoning doubts. It was from her colleague who had initially challenged her plans, now questioning whether their conversation would be taken seriously in a more formal setting. Was this challenge a sign that she needed to rethink her approach, or an opportunity to reinforce her beliefs and help others see value where she did? A wave of self-reflection washed over her as she prepared her response, knowing that each decision layered upon the last would form the bridge leading to her goals. Would she maintain the momentum she had built today, or would she let this moment unravel? The clock ticked on, and her heart raced in syncopation with her thoughts. The next move awaited her. Did she have the courage to embrace even greater challenges and craft a path built on her newfound authenticity? The tension was palpable as Sarah's fingers hovered over the screen. Minutes passed like hours while she wrestled with her response. She wanted to prove that this dialogue she had started was not only valid, but essential. Collecting her thoughts, she began to type, aware that how she framed her next move might solidify her standing within the team, or chip away at the confidence she had so carefully built. Thanks for expressing your concerns, she wrote carefully. I appreciate where you're coming from and find it important that we address these matters. Let's chat further about how we can present a united front to ensure everyone's voice is heard. With each keystroke, she felt a surge of resolve, bolstered by a newfound belief in her capabilities. Pressing send once more, she let out a shaky breath. Half of her was still battling the urge to retreat into skepticism, but the other half was hungry for progress. As she shifted focus back to her work, she reviewed the feedback her colleagues had given earlier. Instead of clinging to her original vision, she opted to scour for nuances and additional perspectives. Ideas began to bloom. She wrote frantically in her notebook, unable to shake off the feeling that she had stumbled into her element. The rhythm of her thoughts quickened, each sentence revealing a layer of clarity she hadn't experienced before. she drafted a revised proposal to circulate during the upcoming team meeting. This time, she would include the extra insights shared by her peers. The proposal wasn't merely hers. It reflected a collaborative spirit that resonated with the group dynamic she wanted to foster. As the hours slipped by, her confidence snowballed, only to be abruptly interrupted by an insistent knock on her office door. Sarah glanced up, startled, to find Sophie, a colleague known for her articulate expressions of dissent, leaning in with an inquisitive look. "Mind if I come in?" Sophie asked, her tone nonchalant yet charged. "Sure, take a seat," Sarah replied, masking her trepidation. Sophie settled onto the edge of Sarah's desk, an unexpected casualness to her demeanor. "I wanted to talk about your project. I didn't mean to challenge your ideas before, but I'm concerned about how we're going to handle scrutiny. What makes you think your proposal can hold up in front of management?" Each word felt like a gentle reprimand, a remnant of the prelude to Sarah's earlier fears. Yet, instead of shrinking back, Sarah straightened in her chair. "I think it's vital that we approach this with a plan that incorporates everyone's input," she explained, steady. "A collaborative proposal can have more weight because it reflects diverse insights." Sophie stiffened slightly, brow furrowing. "That's all well and good, but convincing higher-ups is a formidable task. If we can't articulate our rationale clearly, they may gloss over our efforts." Staring at Sophie, Sarah realized this was not merely a challenge. It was a chance to engage in candid conversation. The soft touch of her earlier fears began to melt away as she countered, "Perhaps that's the very reason we need to rehearse our presentation. Testing our ideas against possible critiques can turn them into strengthened arguments." For a moment, they locked eyes in a battle of perspectives, each realizing the role of opposition in collaborative dialogue. Then, Sophie's expression shifted. A glimmer of respect colored her gaze as she nodded slowly. "I see your point. Let's work together on a strategy. If we can align beforehand, we stand a better chance." Sarah's heart surged. This was the collaboration she had craved, an acknowledgement that their growth depended on collective strength rather than individual persistence. As they began to brainstorm, Sarah felt empowered and uplifted, together shaping an approach that eliminated sprawling doubts. Hours later, the meeting room felt charged with anticipation. Sarah took a deep breath as she stepped forward, her proposal cradled in her arms, ready to face the scrutiny she once feared. Stepping into the spotlight, she braced against the lingering apprehensions that still managed to bubble beneath her confidence. This was more than just an idea she was defending. It was her evolution on display. Would she be able to sustain this momentum in the presence of an intimidating audience? Just then, Sarah recalled the message that first sent her spiraling into doubt, a weight resting heavily on her heart. The moment had come to face not just skeptical colleagues, but the inner voice that had long held her back. Would she stand firm in her truth, or would the past hold her captive once again? As Sarah entered the meeting room, she felt an exhilarating blend of anxiety and determination coursing through her veins. The atmosphere was electric. Colleagues gathered, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. They were there not just to hear about the proposal, but to witness the transformation she had undergone, even if they were unaware of it. With confidence dancing in her heart, she set her proposal on the table, her hands trembling only slightly as she opened her mouth to speak. "Thank you all for coming today. I appreciate the constructive feedback given previously. It's essential that we turn our challenges into strengths," she began, locking eyes with several colleagues, including Sophie, whose earlier skepticism now resembled respect. As Sarah delved into her presentation, she leaned into the collaborative work she had done, highlighting the voices and ideas of her team members. Each statistic rolled off her tongue seamlessly, supported by passionate insights that emphasized unity and collective strength. This wasn't just her voice anymore. It was a chorus of perspectives, each celebrated rather than suppressed. When the time came for questions, Sarah deflected skepticism with poise and responsiveness, backing her ideas with research and examples from colleagues who had contributed. No longer was she the timid woman weighed down by grief and fear. She was emerging as a leader. Every challenging question was met with clarity and vision, bolstering her conviction in her proposal. As the meeting commenced its flow, the doubts that had haunted her evaporated, replaced by an adrenaline-fueled clarity. Sarah shared a memorable anecdote about how she had learned to trust others during that chaotic night helping the deer, illustrating how vulnerabilities could lead to unexpected support and strength. Those moments had not just been about saving a fawn, they had been the catalyst for her personal renaissance. When the meeting concluded, she sensed a shift in the room. Heads nodded appreciatively. People leaned forward, asking their own questions about subsequent steps and expressing a desire to collaborate further. For Sarah, each word exchanged became a testament to her evolution. "Great presentation, Sarah. I'm impressed by the depth you've brought to this," Sophie remarked after the meeting, her tone genuinely appreciative. "I'm looking forward to working together on this." Sarah's smile widened, emboldened by this reinforcement. It was more than validation. It was proof she had stepped beyond the boundaries of self-imposed limitations. As Sarah walked back to her desk, she felt buoyed by a renewed sense of purpose. She was no longer hiding from the past. She was embracing her choices and the relationships she had begun to nurture. The fawn's struggle had mirrored her own. It taught her to confront fear, to summon courage when her instincts screamed to retreat. Over the next weeks, the project flourished under her leadership. Colleagues rallied around, actively contributing. Sarah facilitated brainstorming sessions, welcomed diverse insights, and engaged everyone in the transformation of a mere proposal into a growing vision of the future. She reveled in teamwork, finding joy in every new connection and trusted partnership being formed. The culmination of her concerted efforts manifested in a successful presentation to management, where their proposal was not just received but applauded, a testament to the power of collaboration and the beauty in vulnerability. When the lead manager congratulated them and recognized Sarah's leadership, her heart soared. She could hardly believe how much she had transformed since that night, on the verge of indecision, having awakened a fierce, unwavering spirit of resilience. Most significantly, Sarah's journey had fostered a deeper bond with Emily. No longer were they just navigating their solitary lives amidst a backdrop of loss. Together, they were charting a new course of courage and warmth. They embarked on small community adventures that had once seemed daunting, building connections with neighbors and friends, laying the groundwork for a richer life. As she tucked Emily into bed one night, reflecting on the changes enveloping them, her daughter's beaming smile as they sketched out future plans danced vividly in her mind. "Mommy, you really are a superhero," Emily declared, lighting up the room with her enthusiasm. With a glow of contentment swelling in her chest, Sarah leaned down, tucking Emily's blanket securely around her. "And I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. The journey ahead no longer felt like an uphill battle, but a co-created adventure, an authentic partnership steeped in love, hope, and newfound bravery. Sarah had not only conquered the fears that had held her captive, she had established a robust network both personally and professionally, recognizing the significance of allowing herself to be seen. Her journey towards healing was ongoing, but she had at last embraced the truth that connection, vulnerability, and courage were catalysts for growth. Together, her evolving relationship with Emily and the community built a supportive environment that rekindled her sense of belonging. No longer did she feel like a fragmented figure wandering through the complexities of grief. Instead, she stood confidently on solid ground, prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The winding road of transformation had led her to this steadfast point of renewal, a beacon of hope illuminating the path toward a vibrant future. In that moment, Sarah understood. She had truly become the superhero she sought to be, not just for Emily, but for herself. Now, if you're resonating with Sarah's powerful journey and transformation, I urge you to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm that shares these transformative tales. Comment below your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. Your support is what matters.